People out there who are asking who's Narai Cellars, what is Narai Cellars, who's Steve Byfield, why haven't we never heard of this label before? Why is the only black winemaker in
Mm-hmm.
Canada? To the point where they're saying, we want to come to Niagara and find you.
Hello and welcome to Hustle Over Everything podcast. This is the podcast where we receive stories, tips, and tactics from entrepreneurs who have done it. Today we have a special guest in the building. We're out here in Niagara Falls. We're talking to one of the only black-owned wine cellar owners in Canada. Steve, how you doing, my guy? How are you?
Steve Byfield, man.
I'm fine, guys. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic.
It was a nice drive out here.
Good.
It was like a good team event. All of us were looking forward to this all week, and it's our first time at a winery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to kick things off, I want to have an icebreaker when it comes to wine. What's your top 5 wines, man? Talk to me.
I like to drink or like to make? Because that's another question.
Let's say drink, what I'm
Drink.
saying? Because we're talking to the people here.
Top 5, and not necessarily in a particular order, but what comes to mind: Sauvignon Blancs, Viognier, Pinot Noirs, Cab Merlots, and Syrahs, basically. But again, could also be red blends or white blends. So
Now, we're going to need an order because we need to give people some suggestions of what they need to have, right?
well, again, everyone's wine is very subjective in the sense that being a winemaker doesn't mean I have the right to say
Gotcha.
I made the Chardonnay, so you should only drink Chardonnay, or you better like the Chardonnay. You might like something else.
Yeah.
Or you might like a Chardonnay, but not necessarily particularly my Chardonnay. So what we do at Narai Cellars and what we offer at Narai Cellars is people an opportunity to visit us here. We're at one of our growing partners locations here at Ridgepoint Wines in Vineland, Ontario, where I used to work here as the assistant winemaker, let's just say many years ago. And currently I source fruit from the Scarcelloni family that owns the property. And when we greet people here on the patio during the summer months, we just say, hey, these are our wines. We think that they pair fairly well with hopefully all cuisines, no dishes. And it's your right, it's your privilege to basically find what you think works best. So we're only merely here to give suggestions and guidelines. Take that with a grain of salt.
Perfect. So walk us back when you first got this wine bug early, after university.
Actually, yeah, it was during university.
Yeah.
in
What
my second
intrigued you
year.
about like the food and wine culture that made you indulge in it?
It wasn't even so much curiosity about wine as it was more or less a need to find a part-time job in between my studies at York University. Originally, I was, I guess, gearing, screaming, had in mind to become a music educator, but knew basically after my second year that that's probably wasn't a career path I wanted to take. Got a part-time job with a gentleman who had his own U brewery at that time, what they call here in Ontario, brew on premise facility where people can go make their own beer and wine, and you'll have either 1 or 2 people in the building to assist you pitch the yeast, filter your wine, and help you bottle it, and you take it home afterwards. So it was that point where shortly after, maybe about 2 months into this part-time job in between classes, that I said, hey, this is kind of cool. Was never really a wine connoisseur or lover of wine at that point. I was, at that point, I was much more in my music and, jazz composition and music major and so forth. But it quickly grew into a second passion to the point where by the time I finished university, I wanted to see the winemaking process from the commercial end as opposed to an amateur perspective that I had been indulging in since I guess year 2 of university.
So what are the steps you did to really get into that side of the business?
I took a part-time job with a winery that was located in North End Toronto at that point, called Southbrook. They were called Southbrook Farms. Now they're currently called Southbrook Vineyards. They're located in Niagara on the lake, on Niagara Stone Road. And I worked there for about 8 or 9 months as a product consultant. So basically someone working at their retail store, helping with events, on-premise and off-site events in terms of wine and food shows, and expressed to them I had an interest, in making wine as an amateur winemaker. And then there was basically an opportunity I started in the fall of 2000, and by the spring of 2001, their head winemaker, Derek Barnett, who's who was there from day one, who got them up and going. As the winemaker had made his intentions known, he was going to come down to the Niagara region to help start a new sub winery with two other growers that eventually became Lely Vineyards.
Yeah.
So Derek was leaving, and I figured his assistant, Colin Campbell, would be promoted, risen to the level of head winemaker, and I just, I wouldn't say strategically, but just respectfully went to Colin, Bill Ridemeyer, the owner of Southbrook Farms, along with his wife Marilyn Ridemeyer, and Denise Gowdy, who the retail store manager, and basically said to all three of them separately, "Hey, I understand Derek's leaving. I understand Colin might be the head winemaker, or should be the head winemaker, and if there's anything I could do to help him out in the fall by moving pumps, hoses, helping out with the process, would love to see that process and be happy to help out." And that's all it was. It wasn't like, oh, it's my chance to become a winemaker, and I'm going to run after this and do it. It was like, if he needs help during the fall time, I'd be happy to come here, take some extra shifts, and help him out. Lo and behold, they come back to me 3 weeks later. I was working at that time part-time at Southbrook and part-time in my chosen field, not necessarily teaching, but in the music side with SOCAN, with Society of Composers, Authors, and Music Publishers of Canada. And they came back to me and said, "Do you like your job at SOCAN?" I said, "Yeah, I love it. It's great, but I'm only on a contract basis, part-time, and I'm sure at some point, it probably won't go any further than that because they're not hiring and so forth." And they said, "Well, we thought about your offer to help out here at the winery and the farm, and would you be interested to join us full-time as apprenticing winemaker?" And I didn't have to think twice. I just jumped at it. So from that point, I went on and helped out in the first year. I was hired on as the apprentice. Apprentice about 3.5 years there. I took the onus on myself to go back to school. Wasn't the best student in my career, but went back to school, took some part-time courses, school correspondence, so long distance learning through the University of Guelph, and just came down here on weekends to work on people's farms, just to learn about the process of grape growing, talk to winemakers, get to know the people here in the community, and by 2004, I was promoted to the assistant winemaker. 2005, which was my last vintage there, I more or less was looking after the harvest in terms of making the wine, and made the fateful move down here in the summer 2006 to work, of all places, part-time here at Ridge Point, and then another winery on the other side of the escarpment here, and on the Jordan Bench side of the escarpment, on the Beamsville and the Niagara escarpment here, called Calamus Estates, that had just opened up maybe a year and a half earlier. So I was working at two new start wineries, and it was just mainly a process of learning on my own, getting some help from a high school science teacher who was also an amateur beer maker, so he was able to show me the principles of fermentation in terms of microbiology and so forth, and then took some first year university entry level microbiology courses to basically learn and understand the terminology of enology for winemaking. So it's just more or less been I'm still learning.
Yeah.
So
Student of the game.
You're always learning on this job. So it's been one of which a lot of paying the dues, doing the work, grunt work, learning from very skilled, passionate people who want to show and pass on to knowledge other people who do at least show the sense that they want to learn and they want to grow and help this industry, and just ran with it. So
At what point did you say, I can now launch my own brand?
Again, it wasn't as if I ran for that opportunity. I was given an opportunity to become a winemaker at a winery that's no longer in operation here in the Niagara region, called Thomas and Vaughan. So I was there for about a year and a half, 2 years, and from that point, I was able to basically get a good understanding as to my abilities and my weaknesses and strengths, and wanted to work on that. And it wasn't until I guess the summer 2008, when I was still working at Calamus as their assistant winemaker, the owners at that time, the original owners, Pat Latin and Derek Saunders, offered me the opportunity to utilize their license to be to create my own brand, my own label. At that point, there were two other virtual labels in operation here in Niagara. Charles Baker's Riesling.
All right. So, as I was saying, right, like your story so far seems like you've come from not like a prestige background, because when you think about wine, you think of like it's this very bourgeois culture and what winemaking is. And I just want to commend you for that. So, like, how did that come into play? Like, you as like a winemaker, you being a man of color, what was like your journey into that, like, being like there's not many people who look like you. How are you like balancing that fact that, hey, this is like a black winemaker, especially in a space that's not typically
Welcoming and opening.
welcoming,
Yeah,
exactly.
opening. Well, yeah, I didn't say welcoming, it just hasn't been inclusive.
Inclusive, yeah.
There's good and bad actors in life.
Yeah.
There's been some instances where, in my career where, it hasn't been as flattering, but the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. So that said, coming in as...
What happened?
I wouldn't even say so much, it was anything blatant, but it's just subtle. Working, like say for instance, working wine events.
Yeah.
As either as an assistant winemaker for Southbrook or my own, but more or less one in particular when I was working for Southbrook. I was at a food and wine show. I represent the company, had a bunch of wines there, promotional material, talking to various people coming to the table, asking about the wines and so forth. And one couple came up, or pair came up, and we're trying some wines and so forth. And I was talking with them and between everybody else around the table. And the gentleman had said to me at one point, I think I offered to either rinse his glass or no, I actually offered to give him a different glass to go in between from white from red. And he said, "Oh, no, don't have to do that. You're obviously not from the industry. You must be working here part time for these people, just for the afternoon. Like I work for a winery and won't say where." And he goes, we can use the same glass. Just take the wine and rinse it out and so forth." I said, "Okay, no problem." So poured it and went about it and so forth. And he had some nice things to say about the wine and walked off. So did his partner. Probably about 2 months later, 2 or 3 months later, I was at another wine show at downtown Toronto, again with Southbrook. And I was working with one of my partners there from the winery, and he was going to the different tables, introducing himself, saying hi and so forth, because it's a pretty small congenial community. So basically everybody kind of knows everybody, in the sense that we want to support and, if one company does well, we all do well in terms of the Ontario wine brand. So Nick was walking around saying hi and so hello and so forth, and he brought back some friends that we knew from another winery, and lo and behold, one of the people that had this experience with a few months earlier came by the table, and she kind of looked at me, and I looked at her and said hello. I didn't say anything. I don't want to beat you up with it. I just said, "Yeah, hello, how you doing? Want to try some wine?" She said, "Sure, no problem." And you could see in her eyes, she's like trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, going, "Okay, I've seen this person before, blah blah blah, and we're I'm pouring the wine. How you doing? Just this, that, and that, and that." And my friend Nick knew the story, and then he kind of looks at me, goes quietly, "Do you know her?" I said, "Yeah." "From where?" I said, "Remember that story from a few months ago?" He goes, "Oh." So he goes, "We just try this wine, man." She goes, "Sure, no problem." He goes, This is our Pinot Grigio, this vintage, made by our assistant winemaker, Steve Byfield." Yeah. Well, her eyes went from this to, oh.
Like, oh shit.
Yeah, basically. And let's just say it was a complete 360 of her demeanor. And by the time she left, it was like this, she was like complimenting on my skill and that I was doing this well. And then I said to her, "Hey, it's all cool.
Yeah.
It's, you don't have to go."
So she knew like what she had done before, like dismissed you, and like she was correcting herself, and you didn't even have to say anything.
No. Didn't want to. I figure, karma comes back, right? So at some point it will come back. So, instances like that, but the flip side has been more positive, especially we were asking how was, I guess, my introduction or my welcome industry as part of the community has been nothing but favorable and very supportive. The Scarcelloni family here has been very supportive. The wineries down the road, Taz, Vineland, Featherstone, Malabar, know the owners, know the winemakers, know some of the people in the winemaking crews. It's all been nothing but just love and support, and again, if I have an issue or have a problem with something, there's always someone there to ask questions, and vice versa. They'll come and ask me questions. And, well, we're just trying to exchange knowledge and basically make this a better, more cohesive community. So yeah, that sense, it's been very welcoming. But the brand itself, as a black-owned brand within an industry that's has its roots in European ownership in terms of the land. Normally people who own land have some amount of privilege and class status, and that wasn't necessarily something that was always available to folks in our community. So to actually represent and do something that this is my brand. These are from grapes, necessarily that I may not grow myself, but get from growers who I've known, who I respect, and we're friends. It's been very gratifying and very unique, and it's been well received.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to get started, and with the goal of having their own wine, where would you point them?
To make their own wine, or just get on the process of learning about wine?
To make their own wine. If I was like, hey, you know what? I want to be like Steve. I want to have my own virtual wine brand. Where would I get started?
Well, you would have to either obtain your own manufacturer's license, which is issued by the AGCO here in Ontario, to grant you the permission and the right to make alcohol on their behalf, or they'll have the opportunity to utilize someone else's manufacturer license, like an actual winery, and run your brand as a second label, which I do with Norai Cellars, which we've been doing since 2008, 2009. So, yeah, everything's still above board in terms of it's just rules and regulations that have to be followed. And, you just can't slap something together, put a label on, and say I'm going to sell. No, well, the government's going to want to know. Do you have a business license? Do you have a retail license? Do you have an excise license?
What license?
An excise, Canada excise.
Excise. What's
So,
that?
Basically taxes.
Got you.
So it's not saying it's all tax related, but it's definitely tax driven. So they want to know where the revenue's coming from, and it's also properly documented and also controlled as well, because for the most part it is a controlled substance that we're making in terms of alcohol. It has to be properly tracked. So yeah, there's anyone can apply for these licenses, and if you want to do it full-fledged, have your own property where you can welcome people, then you need land. So either you can buy the land, or if you can find someone they can rent land from, that's fine too. And then there's rules and regulations. You need X amount of acres in order to obtain a retail license to allow you to sell the wine. There's just again, it's all regulatory control, but it is doable. It's just letting people know know that this is a viable career option if you want to do it. And I think we'd like to see more emphasis placed to that, at the secondary school level, in terms of the high school level, as this being promoted and fostered as a viable career path. So what do I need to know? Sciences, know that it's going to be some hard work, so some grunt work and so forth. But it is a creative process, and it is very fulfilling and rewarding.
Solid.
I want to go a little deeper there, because I feel like first of all, the guys, I think they look up to the Diddy's, they look up to the the Ciroc boys, the Bel Air boys, the people who own their own, or at least say they own their own alcohol company, right? And alcohol is very present in our culture when it comes to celebrating, so one thing you were saying is that you have to find someone that has a property, right? If you wanted to rent out from them.
If you want to rent out their property, either to source fruit or to attach a license or utilize their license. That's if they're willing and open to say, hey, I have a manufacturer license, I can make wine, and within that purview, I could have different brands of wine coming from being produced from this license. So it's all about how you're going to market it, how you can design the marketing plan, and so forth. But
Got you. So you can get a license from somebody who already has that.
You could either buy it from them if it's for sale, or you could apply for one with the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, which is usually the actual route you would go. You'd go and apply online, and they would ask for, or at least get the form online, and then they would ask for pertinent information and so forth, and background check, and then the process takes within a year or so, or probably even less than that.
How much does it cost?
I believe it was around $1,000 at one point. I'm sure it's kind of gone up a little bit now with everything else with COVID these days. But the standard rate was, I believe, it was $1,000 for at least to get the process started. That's just for the license to obtain the manufacturer's license.
So, if you were to put a number on how much you say you'd have to put towards getting started, was there a ballpark you could say, like, all right, maybe if you have $5,000,
Well,
you could get started with?
Yeah,
with
when I was given the opportunity to utilize this Calamus's manufacturer license to start in Arai, and again I didn't jump at that right away. I thought about for 3 or 4 weeks. I came up with a ballpark figure, roughly $8,000 to $10,000, just for a small budget to source fruit, buy a tank or two to ferment the wine in, bottles, labels, the application process to get the wine through VQA, and then hopefully have some money left over to put together a marketing budget, because this was a virtual brand, so we really focus on online store presence in terms of our website to direct people to Calamus to buy our stuff, and so it was around $10,000. I think I factored around $10,000 initially, and I had approached actually someone else who I met at a previous winery, Thomas and Vaughn. I was the winemaker for about 2 years. One of the former owners there. I approached him about not so much investment, just more or less how do I go about getting a small business loan. And he wanted to hear my story as to why I wanted it and what I was thinking. So I told him back there. I think I was back here with the Calamus at the Rich Point, and walking to work. Yeah, it sure was. I was just walking through the vineyard, talking to him, and so forth. Yeah, if I did this and that, then I have this concept, because there's two of the guys doing this same virtual label concept here in Niagara. And by the time I finished, I didn't know I was presenting or auditioning for it. But after 10 minutes, tell him my story, he goes, "Steve, don't worry about going to the bank for a bank loan. I'll front you. I always told you that I want to work with you in this industry, and even though I'm no longer with Thomas and Vaughn Group, I still am very much interested in pursuing something." He goes, "I think we can do something." So he said, "Just you take lead, come up with a business plan, what you think, how the business should look like, and we'll get together in a month and a half time." So we did that, and everything just rolled up from that point.
How do you feel about that? Like when he said, I'll front you.
I was taken back by it, because again, it wasn't like I was calling this guy Rod. His name was Rod Ingram. It wasn't like I was talking or calling Rod to find and ask for, "Hey Rod, I know we're kind of friends. Can you front me $10,000?" He was a pretty successful businessman in his own right and in his profession, and I just wanted some of his insight as to is this idea even doable for me to present to a bank for a small business loan. He said, "I'll be basically your angel investor."
Solid. So getting into making wine, a lot of us are like, very new to this field. Part of it is like harvesting the grapes in the beginning to make sure like you're getting the right grape or the right berries. Matter of fact, for making red wine, when do you know it's like the right time to like harvest during the year, especially like when you're making something like a red wine?
Part of the approach for the brand, knowing that we don't have our own vineyard, so I have to find grapes, and which is for the most part fairly easy. I mean, there's a good amount of grape growers here in the region that are happy to help you with their fruit. However, having that experience working with Southbrook for about 5 years or so as an assistant apprenticing winemaker to assistant winemaker, I was able to meet a number of their growers and working with the fruit during that time, and realizing, hey, this so-and-so Kevin Watson has great Chardonnay. Oh my goodness, Don and David Lely have great Cabernet Franc. Oh, so-and-so has great Pinot Noir. It would be kind of cool, just saying, if I ever won the 649, start my own winery, I'd definitely go back and contact these people, say, hey, can I buy X amount of tons of this, X amount of tons of that? Because we had that relationship. And I had that respect for them in terms of what they were doing in terms of grape growers. So made the job pretty easy, because I knew that if I were form and create my business plan around grape growers who I can work with, I know that from the grape growing end or perspective, they would take care of their business. So I was always invited, whoever I set up contracts with to buy fruit, they'd say, you're more welcome to come by through the vineyard anytime, check it out, we can talk, we can work with you when you want your stuff harvested around a general time where we're doing other stuff, and we can make it work. And that was great. So a lot of the time it was a very new learning experience for me, because, and I took it with open arms, thinking, hey, I'm going to learn from someone who's been working on this property for 10, 20 years. They know the property intimately. They know exactly where the weaknesses, the strengths of it, and what works well in terms of varieties, what doesn't. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and just listen
soak it all up.
and soak it all in. So and a lot of them really just appreciate that. So it was just a very, beneficial for them because I was giving them money to buy the grapes. And beneficial for me because I was learning what they did, and as a result, made the winemaking process easier because I'd say 90% of the winemaking. I know a lot of winemakers kind of agree with that, and the grape brewers laugh even more. But we give them the prop due. 90% of the winemaking happens in the vineyard. If the fruit is sound, it's good quality fruit from day one. It's been grown and cultivated right. Makes the winemaking process on the back end and inside the cellar that much easier. I mean, there's still work to be done. You still got to do, your chemistry and your math and so forth in terms of what's happening with the wine and what might be some deficiencies, how to correct them. But for the most part, it makes it really good if you have really good sound fruit to begin with. It's just like anything else.
Yeah. So like we all drink wine. So you have like your Cabernets, your Malbecs, your Pinot Noirs. They all have like distinct flavors, especially if you're like in the summer right now, you're drinking like a rosé. Do you use like certain berries or grapes for each type of wine? And like, what's the process of like, let's say if you're making like a Malbec and then you're making like a, Pinot Grigio, like what's like that whole harvesting and like,
well, essentially, white wines and white wines or white grapes and red grapes are processed basically the same, except for a few major distinctions. Where white wine you want to take, regardless if it's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Vidal Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, Viognier, whatever. You basically want to take the fruit and you want to process it. Either crush it to stem it, so you want to extract the juice from the berries, the skins, and the seeds, and then press off that mass to get juice, or you're going to just take the whole berries itself, the cluster of fruit, put that in the press, what we call whole berry pressing, and extract that gently, so you get more of a natural, gentle extraction of juice, and then you would settle the juice, clarify it, and then ferment it. And before fermenting, of course, you do your corrections as to does it need any sugar or is it low in acid or so forth. So you do your lab analysis on that, and then you go forth. Red wine is basically the same process. However, at time of processing, we're going to bring in the grapes off the vineyard onto the crush pad, weigh it, take your sample so you know what your natural sugars are, which are expressed by Brix. We'll call it Brix or bone. TA, volatile acidity, specific gravity, and a few other things. And then you're going to crush. Again, you're going to crush your whole berries essentially. So you're going to just gently crush them so that you break the skin, so you have some juice exposing to the skin, so the juice can soak and absorb the color from the skins. And then you're going to ferment the juice in contact with the skins, again, for tannin and color. So that goes anywhere, depending on what type of wine you're making, 8 days to maybe, just saying offhand, 14, 16, 20 days, depending on what you're trying to do. And from there, once it's fermented, then you would press it off, taking this large mass of mostly wine, but you'll have some skins and seeds, press it off to get wine, your rough wine, separate that into a tank, and then the pomace that we call it, which is leftover skin, seeds, stems. For the most part, you could use as natural compost. Goes back in the vineyard for as organic matter. So depending on the style of wine you make, Malbecs are fairly full-bodied, robust, tannic. You want to extract as much as you can to get that color, especially in a good year, get the color and the acids in the tannin, so that you can hopefully then put that in barrel, have that nicely age over time, and develop to a very full-body wine. Pinot Noir, you're looking for more. You could do the same process, but it's more of what they call more of a sophisticated palate in terms of weight, texture. So you want more of those silky tones and attributes. So you probably wouldn't extract it as long as a Malbec or a Cabernet Sauvignon. You want your primary goal is trying to get really primary clean fruit to go into barrel and be expressful when you take it out afterwards. I mean, there's different variations, but basically the wine process is somewhat similar for white and reds, but it's fairly just really at the discretion of the winemaker and the proprietor in terms of what they want to do in the end.
So like studying about wine, there's like a maceration process that goes into that. For the people who are like wondering what that, because it's like standard for like making like a red wine.
Well, again,
Yeah.
you can either, again, it's all subject as to your approach. If you want to make a full body red wine, especially if it's coming from a really good, warm, generous growing season. So in Ontario, we had our last really good harvest or vintage was 2020.
Yeah.
So this is 2022. So you should be possibly seeing from Ontario at least some 2020 wines coming out on the market now. Where, the wine, it was, I should back up a bit, but the season itself was very generous in the sense that the growing year was almost perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't too hot, even though it had some hot days. It wasn't too cold. We got timely rain throughout the season. And then come harvest, September, October, November, there was very little to no rain at all. So we were able to basically, as a community, as a collective group, step back and go, we'll take our bricks, we'll look outside, walk among the vines, take our sugar test, make sure the fruit's looking healthy and so forth. And then we can determine, okay, forecast looks good amount for X amount of days, no rain, good temperatures. We'll let this sit for a couple of days, see if we can get some more ripening, some more phenolic ripeness out of the grapes. And we can, wouldn't say we pick at our own leisure, but we were more comfortable picking. Okay, we're going to pick this block, and we could pick it tomorrow, but let's stretch it out to the weekend or maybe next week. And the wines just benefit from that because it was just a very generous, full-bodied growing season. What I mean by full-bodied, I mean, again, timely rain, agreeable temperatures, not too many crazy hot days, not too many cold days, not too many wet days. It was just perfect. So Ontario, we don't really get those years or those seasons consistently. We might get them once every 3 or 4 years. Whereas in other regions in the world, other wine regions like California or Australia, for the most part, or even BC, they're gifted up in BC in terms of they have a very nice arid climate where they'll get those warm temperatures and they're always making really nice consistent wines. In Ontario, in the cool climate region as Ontario, it's a little more variable because our growing seasons are summers are not always consistent. We would like it to be, but it just isn't. So that's just the name of the game. So
how do you prepare for that sporadicness
in terms of the weather?
Yeah, so
again, it goes back to what happens in the vineyard, right? So if you're working with grape growers, or if you have a vineyard manager, if you're working at a winery, your vineyard manager's on top of his or her game. They're out there checking what's going on a daily basis, almost spraying where they got to spray if there's any any disease or pressure issues outside. They'll spray for whatever remedies they need to do. Cutting back on fruit, say for instance, a particular block, say for instance, Chardonnay block, it looks pretty heavy. There's a lot of grapes out there, and maybe you might have any inkling that the growing season is going to be a bit tough. It would be nice to get maybe 5 tons or 10 tons or say 6 tons off of whatever, 3 acres or 2 acres. Let's maybe cut back some of the fruit. So you'll physically would have to go out and do a couple things. Pull some leaves off the vines to have more exposure of sun UV rays that can actually penetrate and come in contact with the grapevines and the grape clusters cells to ripen. And also the decision to green thin. So basically you want to go up there and start what we call dropping clusters of fruit. So jokingly, a lot of wine owners cry about that when they see fruit. Oh my God, you're cutting fruit on, or they walk around like Fred Sanford and holding their heart and that. But they know at the end of the day, if it's going to be a challenging year, and if most times not, we have a season like that, the fall would be decent, could be decent in terms of decent weather, decent conditions to harvest. But still, if you green thin and you do the things during the growing season to ensure that you have a crop that will be viable to be picked at the end of the day, just do it. Just do it, because you'll save yourself so much headache and time. So that's really the ways that they kind of mitigate it. Now, last year was different. 2021. It started off looking just as good as 2020. We were all excited going, hey, could we have 2 years of really good, 2 good back-to-back finishes? Oh my goodness, it was looking fabulous.
Yeah.
And you might have noticed around, I'm going to say mid to late June, and we should have been aware of it. You start hearing reports of British Columbia. Heat wave, unseen temperatures, people dying, so forth. Forest fires, same thing in California and other parts of the world. Well, we had not so much. Yeah, we did have forest fires in Northern Ontario, but our problem here in the Niagara region was at one point, I'm not sure when exactly. This is what we all kind of think of as collectively as a group. The grapevines kind of shut down because it got too hot. It was just too hot. Lack of rain.
Yeah.
At some point, after I believe it was after 32 degrees Celsius, so grapevines, they don't necessarily shut down, but they more or less just slow down their growth to conserve their energy and water resources, the resources they have in their root system. So it's that did cause a problem. And then we had some humidity days afterwards where it was humid among the vines, among the canopy. There wasn't a lot of air movement, so it was kind of stagnant, and that caused some fungus and some fungal growth in the vines. So that led to some other problems, to the point where it was like, by late August, September, it was like you start hearing reports of, Pinot Noir in some places, Pinot Noir, Riesling, it's not looking very good. So then we had to collectively react and say, okay, what needed to be done to save those varieties? So 2021 was a pretty challenging year for Ontario winemaking. From my perspective, it was probably the most challenging year I've ever seen to date. Again, that's why I said earlier, I'm still learning. Yeah. And you take from those experiences. But for the most part, the testament of this industry, as we can, when it's a really good year for grape growing, we all look like rock stars. The wines benefit, the Ontario brand grows more, and people go, oh, these are pretty good wines. I never thought Ontario can make wines. And then when you got a bad year, we don't quietly say it. We say, okay, fine, we have to pull up our sleeves and do extra work to make the wine more than palatable. So that's what we do. And I think that's the strength of the industry, because regardless, we have more average years than good years. And in some points, we have some really excellent years, and we have some really good years. But it's more average years where the skill of the winemaker and what happens in the cellar with the cellar team, that really comes to play. And you really see, and learn from me, from my personal experience. That's where I've really learned to make the best what was being given to me by our growers, and just make the best product we can and make it consistent. So.
Solid. Yeah. I want to ask you, I've always been curious, wine has always been looked at as something that, gets better with time, right? For the non-wine drinker, we don't know really what makes it better with time. So, you as a winemaker, what is it about wine that the more you store it for a lengthier period of time, it tastes better? What's the science behind that?
Again, I'm going to say it's subjective.
But
certain varietals certain wines you can age longer than others. So, for instance, Rieslings again, I'd say probably in the capital of Riesling production here in Ontario, if not Canada, the Niagara Bench, the Niagara region, particularly Beamsville Bench, Vineland Bench, Jordan Bench. The bench meaning this largest rock escarpment that at one point many years ago was underwater. So as the continents divided and the seas receded, it left a plethora and next mixture of natural material and organic material and minerals on the different grades of the escarpment. So it goes basically, down to Lake Ontario. So that said, the bench here in the Niagara region, it has very strong potential to grow world-class Riesling, because Riesling likes minerality, likes mineral. Lime and so forth. And on this property here, they grow a particular clone called Clone 49 Riesling, which is developed in Alsace, France. It's very aromatic. Great clone for among the Riesling clones of grape varieties. Directly cross street from here, we have the property for Vineland Estates, and Vineland's right over there. And they grow in a particular clone called the Weiss clone, which was named after one of the founding people who started Vineland Estates, and he was a grape grower and developed his own clone. And that does great here as well, on the bench as well in Niagara Lake. And that's actually the Weiss clone is kind of like our standard go-to grape. But that being said, Riesling is a grape that you can have it when it's young within the first year of release, or if you want to age it for 2, 3 years or 4 years, you can see it change from a nice vibrant wine to more of those petrol tones, more of those mature tones, where it's just nice and vibrant. Pinot Grigios, I'd say you probably want to drink them within a couple of years of release. Viognier, similar to Chardonnay, those two grape varieties, they can also age very well. But I would say really it depends on your own personal preference. I'm now talking from the consumer point of view. If you like your wines nice and oaky and sharp and racy, drink them when they're young. If you want those tones to hopefully tone down and mellow out over time, buy a couple bottles, drink a couple when you like them at that point, and then save one or two off to the side and go back to maybe a year or two and take mental notes. Okay, when I drank this wine the first time, it was this way. Now I'm trying this wine. Oh, I'm getting more vanilla notes, butterscotch notes. What's going on here? And that's just the wine going through its natural progression of aging.
So does that correlate to collectibles usually?
It can depending on the vintage, the region where the wine's coming from, and of course the property where it was made. So I mean, each region has its strengths of what grape varieties do well, and then you'll have, of course, like any other industry, those who do really well in terms of they'll find their own niche. Okay, we're growing Riesling this way or Cabernet Sauvignon this way, and we'll do this in the back, whatever. We'll do our own spin up in terms of how we want to process our wine, and that's part of the allure and the charm of winemaking. You try to find like Vinyl Estates makes great Riesling, Taz makes great Pinot Noir. Bellevard also makes Pinot Noir. So what's the difference between those two? That's where that whole notion of it's just again subjective. I like this guy's Pinot Noir better than this, and you learn and you get into it that way, and then hopefully by doing that you'll learn more about the region as to this person down at this part of the region is making great Cabernet Sauvignon, but what if I go into Niagara-on-the-Lake, which is even warmer? Climatic zone in terms of grape growing, and actually it's warmer than the beans will enjoy in Vineland area. But some of the reds down there are just spectacular, which I source. Some of my fruit is primarily Cab Franc and specifically Cabernet Sauvignon for that reason, because they're really really strong properties down there.
Like when you're storing the wine, like and you're keeping in a barrel, what's the science behind like storing the wine in a barrel and like not using any other like material, like let's say steel, like keeping
you can use steel, cement, wood,
but
concrete.
people gravitate towards
wood
more.
has oak barrels have a romantic connotation to them, because that's what you see in your history books. Learn about the wine trade, how the wines got from France to how come the English market loved clarets, Bordeaux wines. Well, because they would ship them over. The only way at that time to ship wine, they weren't bottling. They would give you the vessel. They give you the barrel. Throw the barrel out on, throw 34 barrels on the ship, sail off to England.
Yeah.
So that's part of the romantic lore of barrels, but also the barrel also imparts certain attributes to the wine. It's going to give the wine more tannin or additional tannin benefits to it. Helps with the aging process and structure. So again, Ontario, like like any other wine region, we use the various elements, so the various materials, barrels, concrete, steel, so for storage. So again, it's all each property has its different attributes, but it's all good in the sense that I primarily use steel and oak barrels.
Running your own wine company, what is your biggest challenge?
Access to the market, just like anybody else, in the sense that just from a wine, like from running a wine business, never mind being a black-owned company, but a wine business in terms of you want access to proper and fair market share. So try to get the restaurants, try to get some consideration with the LCBO, which we've had in the past, and just really fighting out there to get your brand noticed, and people taking notice and taking an eye and say, hey, that's interesting. And when we started off, no one knew what Narai Cellars was, much less knew how to even pronounce it. So we came up with the name by accident. My business partner originally wanted me to put my name on the label, Steve Byfield to Wine, or Steve Byfield Cellars. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Byfield Wine,
whatever. He's like pushing me, gotta do it. So no,
it sounds pretty classic.
Well, that's fine. No, it's fine. Just
like,
no,
I ain't about that.
No, he was like, Steve, this is your time to shine. I'm backing you. I know you've been at this for a while. It's your time to shine. Go for it. I said, no, I want to come up with a name that we can develop a story narrative and promote the brand as such. So I, over the course of a couple of weeks, would do some permutations online in terms of go on Google and type in whatever and do some research. And I came across this one. Didn't know what it meant by. I think I was kind of pronouncing it right, Narai, Naru, Narai, and I looked into it and I was able to find out initially from my initial research and finding out information. It was a name given by a lot of young African American couples in the U.S. that were naming their firstborn daughters. I think that's kind of cool. It has a nice feminine tone. So, but I'm also a bit of a history buff, so I wanted to go back and figure, okay, there's more to the story than what's leading up, what I can find here. So I went back and was able to find more, and I was able to trace the roots of the name itself to a rural farming community tribe called the Shona tribe. They're located around Mozambique, Zimbabwe, on the African continent, and to them the name means humility or humble. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. Humble wines, humble process, humble seller. Cool. So I go back to my business partner a few weeks later, say, Rod, I think I got a name for a company. I think it's called Narai.
How did 2020 affect your business?
It gave us a opportunity to be on a larger radar on people's radars in terms of just hearing about us, gaining awareness of who we were, and then I don't have to say what happened in 2020. We were stuck at home because of the pandemic and trying to figure out what was going on in the world, and as a result of working from home, or not doing schooling at home or whatever, social media became more entrenched and more entrenched in our lives. So most of our sales are done online. Sorry. And we had, myself along with my business partner, Sharon Little. We talk on a daily basis, on a weekly basis as to sales and what's going on. And typically from January to March, early April, the hospitality industry, so wineries, breweries, probably not so much breweries, but wineries, breweries, restaurants, going high hibernation. There's much going on. So sales are already kind of slow as it is at that point. But in March, we're following our online sales, and how many cases went up this week, how many cases went up last week, and so forth. And that things were kind of trending slowly because of the pandemic, and wineries such as Rich Point and everybody else was once we were all told that everything shut down, no more commerce, everybody had to pivot. So wineries focus 100% on online sales, just to try to keep the lights on, and pay and make payroll and so forth, and pay the essential bills. We were no different. We were already a virtual label, and we figured, well, there's no point even talking to restaurants are not open, so we'll have to focus all of our attention on social media and just let people know aware of the brand and so forth. So that was March. April sales were not bad, but they were kind of steady. But then by the end of April, May, we started seeing a trend where we're getting more sales on a day-to-day basis, and it was around the time when George Floyd incident was happening in the States, and again, we're all glued to our phones and televisions and going to what's going on with the world and so forth. And I was talking to a buddy of mine. I was born and raised in Kitchener, so I was talking to a friend of mine in Kitchener about the situation and expressing my difficulty to accept what I was seeing. That with Breonna Taylor and Aubrey. Ahmaud Aubrey as well, and just saying, there's something this didn't feel right in this person of color. I was like really upset. But then watching the George Floyd tape, and I've only watched it twice. The first time being the first time, going, what happened, and like, oh my goodness, and then I had to watch it the second time, and halfway watching it the second time, I said, I can't watch this, because that's when I realized what I thought I heard the first time, I definitely heard the second time, hearing that man calling for his mother. I said, okay, I can't watch this. Enough is enough. And that really upset me. So that was on a personal note. So I was talking with a buddy of mine about that back in Kitchener, and saying, I saying to him, what? This, maybe about a week after the incidents happened, and we start seeing the social justice movement happening. People going to the street, going to the street in most cases, peacefully protesting, saying, hey, enough is enough. Things have to change. And I said to my buddy, he said, yeah. I said, Randy, enough. Yeah, we're tired of this. I'm tired. He goes, I know, but he goes,
And Randy's black.
Randy's black.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, man, nothing will change. We say the same thing. We're all fighting for the same thing, but at the end of the day, nothing changed. And I said to him, and I remember vividly, I said to him, yeah, but you know what? This feels different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Right now, in this moment in time, there's a paradigm shift that's happening. I just felt it.
There's a different energy that summer.
Yeah, it was definitely.
Like
and
from
said,
everyone, like
for
all over the world. Too.
Exactly, not just people. Everybody had a sense of common sense and humanity in them. Saw that tape and saw what was going on. Say, no, this is BS.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, no, man, there's something different about this. There's something's gonna happen here. I just know. And then 2 days later, I was talking with Sharon because that conversation on the weekend. And then I called Sharon on the Monday as to what sales were like. She goes, hey, sales were good this weekend. Okay, we'll pack them up, get them out. Talked to her on the Tuesday. Sales not bad, pretty good. A little hectic.
And Steven, when you say sales, like there's an online sale.
Online sales.
So people so what quantifies as a sale? Is that a case or is that a bottle?
We ask for a minimum of 2 bottles.
2 bottles
or more.
So from I can go to Niari Cellars, buy 2 bottles and you ship it to me.
We'll ship it to you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so
All
we
right.
did that because I know you want to buy some wine. So
Gotta plug that in.
So we did that. So yeah, we're tracking that, and then I didn't talk to her on the Wednesday, but I talked to her on the Thursday. I said to her, "How are we doing?" She goes, "I don't know what's going on." She goes, "Sales have just increased almost by 100% in the last 5 days." She goes to the point where you and someone else have to come in and help me out to get the stuff out. I said, "Sure," and she goes like, "I've never seen this." I said to her, "Yeah, I think I know what this is." I guess I said to her, "I think this might be an actual feedback or reaction from what's happening stateside, and people want to support Black-owned and BIPOC businesses." And I said, since we're the only label in Canada that's Black-owned and Black-operated, I think we might be in that spotlight in terms of people taking notice. She's like, "Well, if that's the case, that's great, but we still have our logistical issue trying to accommodate these orders." So we did what we could do. Happily took them. Processed it, and then those orders, and then I got a few calls from some wine writers, some good friends of mine who were just saying, "Hey, how are you doing? Hope things are well. Crazy times. Have you been checking your social media feeds lately?" I'm like, "No, that's Sharon's job. I'll have my own little Twitter account and whatever." But he goes, "No, you need to go on social media yourself, like on your company account, and see what's going on." You have people out there who are asking, who's Narai Cellars? What is Narai Cellars? Who's Steve Byfield? Why haven't we never heard of this label before? Why is he the only Black winemaker in Canada? And I'm, well, those who know me, I'm a pretty, I self-describe myself as a pretty quiet, keep to myself type of personality and so forth. And realized fairly quickly afterwards that this was an opportunity for, people obviously wanted to come out and support us and find us and meet us here. So forth, and I figured, I just have to put myself out there, even though I might feel a bit uncomfortable with the spotlight. I'd rather have my wines do the talk, and I figured, hey, if I just put myself out there, just at least greet people, acknowledge that, hey, and we were very much appreciative of that, and make those connections with people and say, come out, visit us if you like, to the point where they're saying, we want to come to Niagara and find you. So we talked to our folks here, our friends here at Ridge Point Wines, set up our own tent in addition to their tent, which will be put up in a week's time, and we greeted people. And throughout that summer, it just every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we were getting people like 20, 30 people a day coming for set time appointments. It would actually be telling them, okay, we can't take everybody at the same time because of COVID restrictions and so forth. Groups no larger than 6 or 8, social distancing, time, this is your time, and this time. And for the most part, people did abide by it, and they came to see us during their times, and the feedback was just incredible, to the point where I was really just taken back and extremely humbled. Not just pleased, like, oh, we're making money. No, the money will take care of itself. It was just to be, emotionally humbled by the whole situation, going, this is surreal.
Yeah.
And to the point where I felt guilty initially about, okay, we're getting all this attention based on what's been happening stateside.
Yeah.
And that's not cool. And then I talked to a few people, and my mother best put it to me. She said, "You know what, son, you just have to make the best out of the situation. Make the negative into a positive." And people will see that. People recognize that. So that's what we did. So,
If there was a quote that has impacted you and your business, what quote would that be?
quote or a word?
Either or.
I'm gonna go back to humble. I had to think about it, and the only way I could think of was humility.
Mm.
What does humbleness come from? Like, what is it that has kept you grounded and not even within the success? Like, have you naturally been a humble person, or is this something that you grew up just?
I've always been quiet, but I don't know if being quiet and being humble are the same thing. But I know just my background, my parents has instilled in myself, my other three siblings, to carry yourself in a certain dignified, respectful manner. Treat those how you want to be treated. Um, Again, I'm a little older than you guys, so back in the day, growing up, in the '70s in Kitchener, Ontario, and seeing the young, small Black community or the Caribbean community at that point band together, to support each other. Kitchener was cool in a sense. Had a lot of great friends of all colors, all nationalities, all faiths. Love them. Great upbringing. But just knowing that, what Canada and what the world was at that time in the '60s, the turbulent times, with the civil rights movement and so forth. And, my parents coming from Jamaica, from the Caribbean, they met here in Canada. They didn't know each other in Jamaica, but they met here in Kitchener. Just really appreciating, as I get older, I appreciate more and more and more. But, it's been a while that I'm really, give them their due and appreciate what they've done to raise a family, back in the day. It's just mind blowing. Okay. I mean, half the crap that they went through then, I don't think I would even put up with it now. I mean, seriously. I know a lot of people of my, my peers would be the same way. And people, who are not even from the community would say the same thing. No, it's, you don't treat people that way. It was just a different time. I mean, yes, the world was evolving and becoming more accepted, but they just our upbringing, just be humble and just take care of your own and do the best you can. And that sometimes, because of your personal color, you might have to work a little harder to get the respect of what you're doing compared to your peers. And doesn't mean you're not as talented. You just have to work a little harder to be better at the game. So that's always been something I've tried to keep at heart, regardless if it was wine or music. But wine won out because it was something I actually wanted to pursue and grow from.
Do you feel like you always have to constantly prove yourself in this industry that you're in, especially being who you are?
I feel that I have to prove something to myself personally, just as in terms of winemaking. So, for instance, and I'll explain this quickly. Regardless if I put a bottle of wine made from 2020 or 2021, I'm always thinking, okay, what could I have done better with that wine? And what do I need to do to make that wine, the next vintage, better? So I think that's been a big part, and element or degree or we will call it ingredient in terms of just working harder to always have better products coming from Naraya from each year, so people can see this isn't just a one-off or he's just using his ethnicity to get it going. No, there's some merit to what's in the ball. There's some merit what's in the brand. What myself, Sharon Little, our bookkeeper Judith Barnett, and our other support friends Renee and Beverly, and other people. We're just always promoting that fact and just want to move that narrative forward. And that this is a serious wine brand. I guess that's you got on film. That's my only part. I'm going to gloat and say, I'm going to take some pride. But that's the one part we always want to take this part as. Our brand has been a serious brand, take it as such, because we're trying to make serious wines and wines that are reflective of the VQA/Untitled brand. We want to be part of that community. We are part of the community. We're proud to be part of the community, and we just want to do our best to keep our end of the bargain.
Most definitely. As work towards wrapping up, where can people find you?
They can find us at www.naraycellars.ca, and also we'll be relocating our base of operation to at the end of the month, so end of May/June 1st, to West Avenue Cider House, located in Freelton or Flamborough, Ontario. So I've known the owners, Chris Hayworth and Amy Robson, for a little bit now, and we've done some collaborative work there with them, meaning our Naraya brand with their brand, West Avenue, making some cider/wine, sparkling wines, and yeah, something we've been talking about for a number of years, and it's coming to play now. We're gonna put our home there and build a brand from that such. And yeah, looking forward to it. It's a great experience and opportunity.
As you're building this brand, Steve, like what does success look like for you, like in the next 10 years as you build your business?
Hopefully to sell one, and hopefully to build this brand from our current production to whatever we have. I'm not going to say too much what's happening on the back scene, but we have some very interesting offers and opportunities to expand the brand, not just provincially, but hopefully nationally. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll see. There is definitely some. Definitely have received some interest and express interest from stateside as to where people can find our wines. Of course, we don't have any representation right now. That's all I'm going to say right now. But that hopefully will change in the future. But no, it's been really again in the last couple of years. It's gone to a stage where I didn't think it would go to, because again we were working so hard up to that point to get where it's at, and we're happy with that. But figure there has to be more to this. There should be more to this, and then meeting new contacts and so forth over the last couple of years. It's been pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the hustle is what you can control. So control your grind and control your life. I'm Alex.
And I'm Owen Osinde.
And I'm Steve Byfield from the Rice Cellars. Thank you very much.
That's the show, y'all.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.